Why do we fall for certain people and not others? Why do some relationships feel magnetic, almost fated, while others collapse without explanation? It's not luck. It's psychology. Hidden mechanisms in your brain, some ancient, some learned, decide who attracts you, how you bond, and why you stay, even when you shouldn't. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Attraction is not about compatibility. It's about familiarity. Your subconscious is constantly scanning for patterns it already knows. Not necessarily what's healthy, but what feels safe. If chaos felt like love in your childhood, chaos will feel like home in your adulthood. That's not destiny, that's conditioning. Psychologists call this attachment imprinting. From your earliest caregivers, you learned what love feels like. Attention, neglect, control, affection, and your brain stored that pattern. So when someone mirrors those same emotional cues later, your nervous system lights up like a signal flare. This feels right, but it's not right. It's recognizable. That's how trauma bonds form. Hook alert. Here's where it gets darker. The same neurochemicals that create love can also trap you. When your partner alternates affection with withdrawal, your brain releases dopamine and cortisol in unpredictable bursts. The same cycle that fuels addiction. The tension, the relief, the uncertainty. It wires you to crave the next hit of validation. You think you're in love, but you're actually addicted to relief from anxiety. This is what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, one of the most powerful emotional conditioning systems in existence. It's the same method casinos use to keep gamblers hooked. Every reward is uncertain, and that uncertainty releases more dopamine than the reward itself. When applied in relationships, it becomes emotional glue. Invisible, irrational, nearly impossible to break. Ever wonder why you can't stop thinking about someone who hurt you? That's your brain's reward circuitry stuck in a loop, obsessing not over the person, but over the possibility of resolution. The fantasy that maybe this time it'll finally feel safe. That's the addiction. And until you break that loop, no amount of logic or self-talk will set you free. But here's the twist. The same mechanisms that make you vulnerable to manipulation can also make you emotionally powerful. Once you understand how these triggers work, you can start flipping the dynamic. Instead of reacting, you observe. Instead of chasing the high, you study the pattern. That shift, from emotional to analytical, is how you regain control. Now let's talk about something few people dare to admit. We attract what reflects our unhealed parts. It's not that you seek pain, it's that your subconscious is trying to resolve it. Every emotionally unavailable partner is a mirror, forcing you to confront the places where you abandoned yourself. Every manipulative partner teaches you about your own boundaries. Pain becomes data, if you pay attention to it instead of personalizing it. Re-engage here. Because this is where most people miss the real secret. Attraction isn't random chemistry. It's unfinished business. You keep meeting the same type until you finally react differently. That's the psychological closure your subconscious has been craving all along. And yes, that means every failed relationship wasn't wasted time. It was feedback, proof that your emotional algorithms were running in the background. The question is, will you rewrite them consciously or let them keep running the same destructive code? In part 2, we'll dive into how to actually rewrite those patterns, how to rewire your emotional triggers, reclaim attraction on your terms, and stop mistaking intensity for intimacy. Because once you understand the real psychology behind your romantic relationships, you stop being played by your past and start mastering your mind. Here's the truth no one wants to face. Love doesn't just happen, it's learned. And most of us were never taught how to love in a way that feels safe, calm, and mutual. We were taught drama. We were taught tension equals passion. We were taught that being chosen after chaos equals worth. But the brain can unlearn anything it once learned, if you know how to talk to it in its own language. Let's start there. Your emotional brain, the limbic system, doesn't speak words. It speaks repetition, sensation, and timing. That's why you can't just decide to stop caring about someone. You have to train your nervous system to recognize safety and excitement as compatible, not opposite. How? By creating contrast. But consciously this time. The same contrast that once hooked you to a toxic pattern can hook you to healing. Instead of chasing unpredictable highs, give your brain consistent reward loops. Calmness paired with connection. Honesty paired with attraction. Over time, your body starts to crave peace instead of chaos. Psychologists call this emotional recalibration. You're literally rewiring your emotional pathways, changing what love feels like on a biological level. The old you associated passion with anxiety. The new you will associate passion with trust. That's emotional evolution. Here's a powerful exercise. Think of someone you once felt addicted to. Replay that emotional loop, but don't focus on them. Focus on the sensations inside you when you waited, hoped, or overanalyzed. Now, instead of judging it, observe it. Label it. This is craving. The moment you name it, your prefrontal cortex activates, reducing its emotional charge. That's not philosophy, that's neuroscience. Now, here's where it gets fascinating. The people who are most resistant to manipulation are not the cold or detached ones. They're the self-aware ones. Emotional intelligence is not about control. It's about contrast awareness. Knowing when someone's words and their energy don't align. Catching the subtle pause after they guilt trip you. Feeling when a compliment is actually bait. That's the next level of dark psychology awareness. Not to manipulate, but to stay unmanipulated. And when you master that, relationships stop being emotional wars and start being experiments in self-understanding. Every interaction becomes data. Every trigger becomes a lesson. You no longer chase validation. You study it. But what about obsession? Let's close the loop. When someone becomes obsessed with you, it's usually because you trigger their emotional inconsistency. Not because you're irresistible, but because you represent an unsolved pattern in their psyche. If you maintain a calm, grounded energy, they'll either mirror it and rise, or fall away. Either way, you stay centered. That's the ultimate psychological power. Emotional independence. The ability to experience attraction without addiction, love without illusion, connection without losing yourself. Because here's the twist. The most magnetic people aren't the ones who play games. They're the ones who stay unpredictable without being unstable. They show vulnerability and mystery in balance. Their energy says, I could love you deeply, but I don't need to. That's what the human brain finds irresistible. Certainty with edge, warmth with mystery, safety with spark. So if you want to transform your relationships, stop asking, how can I make them love me? And start asking, what does my energy teach them about love? Because when you become emotionally fluent, when you understand your own triggers, rhythms, and shadows, no one can control your heart. And that's when the game changes. Not because you learned how to manipulate others, but because you finally stopped being manipulated by your past. If this resonated with you, subscribe to Twilance. Every week we decode the psychology behind attraction, manipulation, and human behavior, so you can master the unseen dynamics shaping your life. Because awareness is the ultimate form of freedom.